Narcissistic individuals, with their sense of entitlement, their grandiosity, their self-importance, their exploitative behaviour, their arrogant and haunting behaviour, their lack of empathy, often display profound neglect towards those around them, usually in a covert way. And this is anybody and everybody. Their children are not off limits to this. They often neglect their own children, and it can manifest in a variety of ways. Neglect is failure to care, and as narcissistic people lack empathy, they don't have the ability to effectively care for their children. Genuine parents may be going through things, however, they still have the empathy to care. They still are doing their best by their children, even if it's not everything that their children require at that moment in time. Narcissistic parents have a complete disregard for their child's needs, as they are too busy prioritizing their own wants, desires and needs. Therefore, the children don't get to experience things that they should, or that their parents can potentially afford, and the child rarely to never feels seen. A narcissistic parent will fail to listen to their children. Now, parents in general can be busy. However, with a narcissistic parent, it's a repeat pattern of behaviour where they fail to listen because they simply lack the empathy to do so. Therefore, the child never feels heard. They can use their child to their advantage, that bragging and boasting about their child, to exploit the child, and the child just grows up feeling like a trophy, especially seeing as the narcissistic parent will take the credit for any of their children's achievements. They will criticise and mock and humiliate the child so that they can feel superior, usually because they're envious of the child and they lack the empathy to care for how this negatively impacts the child, so that the child never feels like they're enough, never feels like what they do is good enough. They are some of the most inconsistent parents and unpredictable parents. They will be there when it suits them for the child, and they will drop the child when it suits the parent. No interest in the child's welfare. They have that sort of smothering, love-bombing behaviour to then the cold and distant behaviour, which they usually blame the child for because the narcissist is too busy prioritising themselves, and this disrupts the child's stability and security. They will go all out to compete with their child in some of the most horrific ways to help boost their own ego, their sense of superiority, so the child just feels like they can't measure up, they're not enough, and learns to compare themselves to other people, which is a very dangerous habit. They will gaslight and manipulate their child, causing that confusion and that self-doubt within the child, because the narcissist is arrogant enough to believe that they are always in the right. And if a child points something out, the narcissist gets offended by this and seeks to gaslight their own children to maintain control of their children. They will use emotional and sometimes physical abuse to exploit their children, to get their needs met by their children. And this distorts the child's perception of a healthy relationship. When you're growing up in it, you don't recognise that there's anything wrong with it. You feel like something's not quite right, but because you don't know any different, you don't know what is or is not right, and a narcissistic parent will gaslight you to convince you that their way is right and everybody else's way is wrong. They will invade your personal space because they feel entitled, so you don't learn as a child, or children of narcissistic parents don't learn how to create effective boundaries with others. They will fail to provide any forms of support or guidance for their children. Narcissistic parents don't discipline their children, they control their children. They're looking to get their needs met, and they often do it under the guise of discipline. However, when you take a step back from the situation and see it in its entirety, you often see the child didn't do anything wrong other than displease the narcissistic parents. So the narcissistic parents sought to punish that child by withholding attention because the child didn't thank them to the narcissistic parent standard.